Okay, so part 3 of my 2017 Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio front fascia repair. Repairing the places where the plastic wheels had failed, and where a botched repair job had been done at some point prior to my ownership. In part 2, I reattached the lower grille with these screws, which is where from the factory is normally plastic welded, and then there was obviously some minor damage, and the dealership that owned the car before me and used it as a demo did a poor repair job, so those welds came back loose again. But up here's a pretty important part. This tab had come loose, so I used some wire mesh. It's got some rigidity to it, not a lot of rigidity, but enough that I could shape it, make some 90-degree angles, cut off a few pieces. And you see, I just heated up the mesh and let it melt into the plastic, the existing plastic. It doesn't look the best, and it's still warm. I don't want to mess with it too much, but it's on there. Same on the underside. Again, it looks a mess, but the mesh is melded into the fascia 90-degree bend and goes up into the tab right here. And then along here, I just kind of added some plastic material by melting one of these plastic rods. My kit came with, some plastic rods, way more than I'll ever need, but melted off a few chunks of that, let it heat up on the iron, and then, put it in the seam. But the main part that was broken off is this right here was broken. And so that's now reinforced with the steel mesh, melted into this part of the bumper and melted into the tab itself on each side, and up here. So we'll see how that goes. The next thing that I need to move on to is reattaching this air duct. This was straight up, also plastic welded from the factory. This is actually what the factory plastic welds look like. Not very clean, welded in these spots right here. This is how it looks. So I'm gonna have to try and, clean this off, and then I'll melt some plastic into those places and press this back into place so that the plastic oozes up through these holes. But I've got to clear out all of these holes first, get this piece really cleaned up, get that cleaned up, and then I'll start trying to do some melting. I don't see why this piece, couldn't, have been screws. Just like this is raised up for the headlight washer pump to mount to. There could have been some raised points here that came up into, the high area of the air duct, so that screws could go in and hold it to the bumper rather than it being glued. But that's not how it is, so I got to work on that. All right, but I think this is going to suffice. Like I said, it's still warm to the touch, especially on the other side, but I have reinforced mesh melted into the bumper here, and on this side, wrapping around. So we'll see how that goes when I start to put it back together. Got to get this back on first though, so I'll start prepping it. All right.